So in this Leading the Field podcast, I sat down with Kirsty Walker from IBSA. This is our first sponsored podcast. We do a lot of collaborative work and education with IBSA. They've been great to work with. So we met up at the Kensington studio at Pure Sports Medicine. And check it out. Let us know what you think. Kirsty, great to see you. Good to see you at both of our clients at Pure Sports Medicine. So talk to me, we've known each other for a couple of years now. We've interacted at various events and things, which has always been great fun. How did you end up working at IBSA?
Hi Andy, thanks for having me on the podcast today, and thanks for the opportunity to come and chat to you. So I'm a physiotherapist by background, so I qualified in 2009 and came to work straight in London as a Band 5 physio, where you do rotations, and then gradually worked out I wanted to work within musculoskeletal, so specialised in that and ended up working mostly at Guy's and St Thomas's for roughly 15 years, and my last role was as an advanced physio practitioner, so I did injections as part of that role and prescribing, and I never really thought physios could go into pharma. It was never a thought process I had or a career avenue that I thought was open to me. But I was approached by a recruitment agency who had been commissioned to find some members of staff to join the Sinovial team at IBSA UK, which were a new affiliate of the Swiss pharmaceutical company called IBSA. And so they approached me. They were looking for a clinician by background. I think because our medical director at the time was an SEM GP, and so she'd seen the benefits of having a clinical head whilst working in industry. And so I think with her influence, she said we should get a clinician into the role for launching the products, because they've got good disease area knowledge. And a lot of them have injection knowledge as well, and also they've got networks within that field, and so I think that forms the brief for the job. And so they must have done the search on LinkedIn and came across my background in the role I was doing at the time and approached me, and it was pure curiosity that I thought, okay, well, I've never even thought about pharma, and I was at a bit of a crossroads in my career at the time. I didn't really know. Certainly with physio background, I worked in an 8A role. There's limited roles above that are available. And so I didn't know if I wanted to stay doing that clinical role forever, but I also couldn't see where else I could go within the NHS. And I thought I don't really want to do private work because work-life balance, I think at the beginning it's quite hard to build up that base of patients that are coming to see you regularly, so you end up doing lots of weekends and evenings, and I thought that's not something I want to do either, although this job means I do a lot of that now, ironically. So I thought, where am I? And then was approached about this job, and the rest is sort of history.
Yeah, you're one of the worst influences actually from that work-life balance from some of the times that we've interacted. It's really interesting. And so, when you were offered this role then, like what was your perception of people working in industry?
I think it's fair to say I was a bit nervous about the reputation that pharma in particular has. I think I was approached around the time that certain programs are out on Netflix, like Dope Sick and other opiate crisis programs, and I think that was my overarching feeling was, is pharma, is it ethical or not? I've gone from working directly with patients in a role which is about improving quality of life and adding value to individuals, and my perception was, am I going to sell out by working within an industry that is fundamentally founded on the same principles as delivering healthcare? Because without pharma you can't really deliver healthcare, but also with all the negative press that's been around recently about pharma, I was a bit sceptical. And so for me it was really important, if I was going to consider it, that it felt like a place I wanted to work, and that it was rooted in strong ethics. And it was important, the parent company to me was as important as working in the UK company, because they strategically direct what happens in our UK company. So it's very important to me that they're also rooted ethically in what they're manufacturing and producing and how they're going about it, and making sure they're patient-centred, really. And so those are the fundamentals I needed to find out before jumping into industry.
How did you find that out enough for you to say yes?
Yeah, I think it was slow. I think there's always, when I took the job, obviously I met the UK team, and I felt like it was a small family, which is one of the nice, I know that's kind of what you've tried to foster at PhysiQuip, and I certainly feel that IBSA UK, when I joined, it felt like I was joining a family, very united, supportive environment. And so I felt the ethics and the team environment was the right environment for me. When I went in, they were really interested in my background as a clinician, and they were really interested in understanding my views on the types of products they manufacture, hyaluronic acid, and how they might help patients, and very interested on the patient-centred aspect of that, and that chimed well with me and my morals, and so it felt comfortable after those. I think I had 3 interviews in the end, so it was quite a lengthy process with various different individuals, but at no point did I feel like it was going to be an industry that had a bad reputation, or it was going to compromise me on those morals. So yeah, it felt comfortable. And then once I'd taken the job, I think I was sent out to Italy within 3 weeks with a clinician to go out and do a course. And then I got to meet the global team, and we're Swiss-Italian by background, the team based in Lugano, and they're all lovely. It made me feel really welcome, and again, just very patient-centred. And on the course, they barely talked about the products, which really surprised me. It was all really about learning how to deliver injections with ultrasound guidance, and a lot about sort of the physics around what they're doing and stuff, which it didn't feel salesy. It didn't feel they were throwing a product down people's face. So I really, yeah, it felt like it was comfortable. It chimed well.
I think you guys definitely have got a really good, I just judge it on my interaction with you and John and Druty and some of the other guys there, and I really enjoy working with you, and it's fun, and I think you work really hard. I know you do, and we chat a lot outside of working hours about various different things, but it definitely comes from a similar place that what I see it as. It's really trying to help people. And so how has your view changed on people working in industry now from having done this for how long have you been there for now?
Nearly 1.5 years I've been in the role. I think my view is that industry are ultimately they're manufacturing a product to help an end user, and they wouldn't pour millions of pounds into R&D to do that if there wasn't some kind of drive to solve an unmet need or to solve a problem. And what IBSA are quite unique at is the company, they don't invest R&D in inventing anything new. They look at what are known molecules or drugs, and they look at how can we improve the performance of that specific molecule or drug, how can we improve the adherence to it. Let's say if there's something like fertility medications, which they manufacture. So they manufacture and patent technology, which means that whatever molecule they're manufacturing will be either better adhered to or will improve the quality of life for the person as the end user. I think that's quite a unique way. They're looking at, these things work already, we know they work, but there are all these problems with how they're currently manufactured or how they're currently provided to patients. How can we solve that? And they've gone away and have said, for instance, let's talk about what I work with, which is hyaluronic acid injections. They've manufactured a process that improves the viscosity of the molecule, which means it's easier to get through a needle. And in that, it means you can increase the concentration much higher. And so they've worked out that hyaluronic acid helps musculoskeletal conditions, osteoarthritis, but the problem is with certain molecular structures is it's too viscous. You can't get it through a needle above 2%. So they went, okay, how do we change that? They've manufactured this new molecule called a hybrid, and it's more flexible, and that means it still gives the performance that you need from hyaluronic acid, but you can get it through a 21 gauge needle, which is a simple green needle. which is obviously much more comfortable for the end user because you're not having to use a much bigger, thicker needle to get 3.2% in, which is the concentration they've managed to achieve. So it's more comfortable for the clinician. They're not having to really push it down through, press as hard as possible. Speaking from experience, I've had syringes fly off needles because it's been such a stiff injection to get in. And so you negate that. So it's better for the clinicians. It's better experience for the patient because it's a quicker procedure. You're not spending so long trying to plunge it. And you're using a normal gauge needle. So it's still a needle, it's still an injection, but it's hopefully a little bit more comfortable at the end.
So how do you communicate that? So I'm not overly familiar in terms of injectables and so on, but we've had a little bit with, we've had someone that worked with, with other providers. So how do you communicate that? Because there's a lot of people out there in sales and then breaking it down into the injectable market. How do you get your message across? How do you get in front of the right people and help share that information with them?
Yeah, I think when I went into the role, and it's a mix of sort of medical sales and a bit of marketing, and I've always thought sales is a bit of a dirty word because it feels like you don't want to go in and be like, here's what I've got, buy it. And so I go in very much with the, if I do meet a clinician, I'm there first and foremost as a peer, as a clinician myself, and I'm there to understand what, if any issues, what if they have any issues, what are those issues, and is there any way we can help address those issues or work together beyond just supply of a product itself. So I think going in with the view that I'm there really just to work collaboratively with a customer, and that might be procurement from a large group of hospitals, or it might be just an individual physiotherapist that wants to start offering hyaluronic acid injections. So you work across the whole spectrum of the market there. And I think, going in and just delivering information and saying, do you want it, is maybe not going to yield the best outcome for either party involved. So I think going in and understanding a bit more about the person who's sat in front of me, what their drivers are, what their pinch points might be, what they're struggling with in terms of service, or where they think they want to grow their service, and then saying we've got a whole portfolio of hyaluronic acids available. Not all of them will be suitable for every person or every clinic. And so is it about, do you want a cost-effective option? We've got something that might be suitable for that. Do you want something that performs better and for longer? We've got a product that does that. Do you want something that's newer and more innovative and combines new molecules together? We've also got something that would sit in that category as well. But also, what do you need to deliver it? So we know hyaluronic acid, it's a medical device, it's not a medicine, which means that you don't need to be a prescriber to deliver it as an injection. Although it is recommended, I would say my background as a prescriber, doing that prescribing qualifications, hugely important if you're going to be doing anything along steroid injections or other injectables. Even though you could ask a doctor to prescribe it, I think having that experience and knowing how to work up a patient and what to do with adverse events, etc., is hugely beneficial for any injectable products that you might be using. But so it's a medical device, but unlike a steroid, which is an anti-inflammatory, hyaluronic acid will not give you any systemic benefit. So let's say you've got a painful knee, Andy, and you've struggled with physio and it's not getting better. You've done all the bits we've asked you to do and you're like, look, I want to get back to, what do you do, gym work? I want to get back to gym work, I want to get back to squatting heavy. What are my options? And we say, well, potentially a hyaluronic acid injection would be helpful because what it does is it improves shock absorption function in the knee, so it's good for load-bearing activity. But if you've got any stiffness and pain, it can help to improve that as well. The problem is if I landmark injected it, so I just looked at your knee like we might do with a steroid injection and said, okay, well, I found the point in which I think I'm going to enter the joint, I'm going to deliver it. If we don't know it's absolutely within the joint, a hyaluronic acid injection will not be efficacious at all because it's not going to go into the synovial fluid in which it's trying to restore the function. And so if you can deliver hyaluronic acid injections blindly, so landmark guided, and steroid injections typically are delivered like that because it's a drug and it has a systemic absorption and effect, whereas a hyaluronic acid injection does not have the same properties. And so if it's in a tissue in which it's not the target area, so it's not sat within the joint space, it's not going into the synovial fluid function, you won't have a good outcome for a patient. It's likely to be quite painful as well. It's quite a viscous substance. And so we are approached by a lot of clinicians who want to start developing their private practice and would like to offer procedures like hyaluronic acid injections. And part of the conversation I have with them is, okay, where are you at in terms of your, have you done any ultrasound guided injection training? Have you considered that as a pathway? Because that really improves the accuracy of your injections, which ultimately improves the outcomes for your patients because you know it's in the target tissue. Alongside that, doing ultrasound guided also means that you are protected to a degree. If you've got a picture of the needle in the joint itself, delivering the hyaluronic acid into the target area, and a patient, let's say, doesn't have a good outcome, you can say, well, it was definitely in the right area, so perhaps that wasn't the right intervention for the condition you have, or it hasn't helped for other reasons, but it's definitely not due to where it was placed. So it's about going in and understanding that customer. Do they have capability to inject with ultrasound guidance? If not, is that something we could help them with? So that could be a conversation about maybe we could support with training and education around that. Do they actually understand what hyaluronic acid is? Hyaluronic acid generally isn't used much within an NHS setting, if at all, because it was removed from the NICE guidelines, so it's not used in NHS pathways. So for instance, in my last job, it's not something we injected at Guy's and St Thomas's. So there might potentially be lots of physios or other allied health professionals that want to start injecting it but have no experience of injecting it in their services. So understanding where their knowledge is with actually what hyaluronic acid is and what it helps with and what it doesn't help with, crucially. And then do they have the means to set up a clinic? If you're an individual clinician, there may be issues with them buying product in, setting up the clinic, so marketing that clinic, marketing their new services, getting patients through the door to use those services, so getting that patient throughput as well. So if they have learned a new skill to deliver a hyaluronic acid injection, do they get then the patients to practice that skill so it really solidifies in their capability? And do they have the financial, have they got the financial reserves to get going with all of that from the off? And we recognise training for ultrasound guided injections is expensive, as well as the equipment, as well as the product. So we look at all of these areas as a business and we say, well, how can we help you deliver a good intervention to a patient in the most accurate and safe way, whilst also making it commercially viable for the business? We try to help on all of those fronts where we can, compliantly.
Yeah, no, it's just really interesting because there's a lot of that, and this is where it is interesting, like with your clinical background, is that people will have worked clinically and now it's just exploding in the private sector. And you do have to think of all those things, and a lot of people are like you where they are sales, I don't want to get involved in that, but you need to think about how you're going to just roughly working this stuff out. You might end up spending 30 plus grand just to get going with this. So with the people that you speak with, I mean, there's companies like Pure Sports Med that are like very established. They've got an SEM doctor-led service. They've got a full team, big setup, 10 odd clinics around London. So they're very established in this area. But what is the normal target market, I guess, for you? Like, who is your average client?
Yeah, so there's not one specific answer I can give you, but what I've witnessed over since I started in early 2024, there was removal of hyaluronic acid from the NICE guidelines about 4 months before I started, And that seems to have it's really changed the market entirely, because off the back of that 2023 change in the OA guidelines recommendations, that has had a knock-on effect to the medical insurers, and most policies under those companies no longer fund hyaluronic acid as part of the management of OA either. So we've had a change from NHS not having access to it. That's had a knock-on effect to insurance patients not having access to it. So those people who may have had hyaluronic acid injections before, and it's worked really well for, and they found it really beneficial, and they go, I don't know, once a year back to the same clinician and have it topped up, they've now had to go somewhere else in the market. And it's kind of driven real change in the market, which means that it's now purely self-funding in most areas. So patients are putting their hands in their pocket and paying for the procedure and the products. And that's driving growth. It's driving growth particularly within clinicians who already maybe provide injections. But typically patients may have gone through their insurers to a sports and exercise medicine doctor to have a HA injection. They now no longer will have access to that unless they're paying for it self-funding. So there's lots of clinicians like physiotherapists, advanced physiotherapists, who are seeing that gap now, where patients want value for money if they're putting their hands into their pocket, and they're noticing that physio clinics will have less overheads. They typically don't need to be CQC registered to provide injections. And so clinicians are saying, oh, I can see this, it could be an area of growth. Maybe I will start offering ultrasound-guided hyaluronic acid injections, and that's driving a real demand for training, education, for equipment, and for good products. But we also want to make sure, with any huge change in the market or any growth, we also want to make sure that that's done in a safe and sustainable way, so patients get the treatment that they need at the right time by a well-trained clinician who's had training, education, supervision, has good equipment, knows how to use the machine well, and therefore delivering it well. But yeah, Pure Sports is a typical customer of ours within a London area, so SEM led, and they were one of the first customers we approached to say, we've launched newly into the market, would you be interested in having a conversation about our products? And I think at the time they were using a competitor and had found variable outcomes with patients, which we know can happen with hyaluronic acid injections. And so there seemed to be a bit of a need from their side that they wanted good outcomes for patients, because they recognised it's now a self-funding procedure. So if people are paying for it, it's got to be done really well, and it's got to be a good product. And so there seemed to be a bit of a driver from that side, or an appetite to look at some other options on the market. And then also because it's SEM led, the doctors that we've certainly had contact with here, they're really keen on, there's variable interests across the group, but some of them are really keen on getting involved in European workshops that we do abroad, led by Global, and that might be going as a delegate or teaching. Some of the other clinicians I've spoken to are really interested in actually delivering workshops in this country, so we're collaborating on one later in the year with a doctor from here. And some of the others are interested in actually gathering those patient outcomes. And so they decided to change to our product, or adopt our product into their practice model. But they want to also then check, what impact does that have on our patients? Is it providing better outcomes? How can we gather that? And so all of these conversations were had right at the beginning. Obviously, we talked a bit about our product and the hybrid molecule and how that performance is better because it's a higher concentration. It lasts longer than, say, a linear product. But it wasn't just a simple product chat. It was very much about, we're beyond a product supplier. We're here to help grow your service and help to improve your patient outcomes. And if that means we put our heads together on auditing, design an audit protocol or framework, can we work together on gathering that real world evidence? Or are you interested in some of the opportunities we have from working together with education? getting your clinicians out there and providing workshops or talks. We run evenings at the British Library a couple of times a year where we get clinicians to come and present on a topic around MSK, and there's absolutely no product focus at all. So it's a good opportunity for clinicians to showcase the things they're really passionate about with their patients. And so we talked about that, and then also thinking about the commercial side, so pricing and all of that. So it was a very varied conversation. It wasn't sort of a tick box of things we were looking at going through. It was working out what's important to you, how can we help you with that, and how can we grow this relationship over time organically to make sure that your patients get a really good service, that they get a really good experience of the product, so we can build our brand awareness because we're brand new really to this country. And how we, from me and my background, I'm most passionate about the education side and making sure that we're sharing all that rich knowledge within SEM and musculoskeletal care. And so Pure is sort of a perfect case study for us from that perspective.
No, they're a really good company to work with from our side as well. And so curiosity is something that you've mentioned there about asking questions, and you're really good at doing that. I've seen you and John's good at doing it as well. So like when you're going on these international workshops, which look amazing, I've not had the invite for any of those yet.
To get you on one, Andy.
Well, I've been dropping enough hints, but anyway. No, they do look great. So how do you decide who does go on those? How do people find out about it?
Yep, so we don't sort of outwardly advertise any of our global workshops. We tend to do it based on relationships. So if we've had a bit of contact with a clinician, it's part of the value add of working with us as a customer. We have these opportunities to either do training and education in the UK or to go away to our global workshops, which occur across Europe. So this year we've had some in Milan, we've got some in Barcelona, we've got some in Malta, and typically it would be also in Madrid. I can't forget Madrid. And so, people would find out about them usually through contact through myself or John Fairweather, my colleague. Our team is expanding, so there'll be more names for people to think of. But yes, the best way to find out about it is get in touch, speak to us directly. There are lots of clinicians who've been through the pathway as well, who we often say, please share with your network about the value of coming on these courses. And they're typically run, we've got a faculty within each, wherever we run them, we've got a faculty of clinicians that provide the courses there. And they are typically a mixture of orthopaedics, but rheumatologists and radiologists. So we've got the ultrasound component, we've got the sort of osteoarthritis disease component from the orthopaedics and the rheumatology side as well. And they're very well run. They're a lovely opportunity to network with European colleagues from different countries as well. And there's a lot of shared practice that happens just organically within those sessions, which is really lovely to see that people are learning from, I've never seen an injection done that way. Why do you do it that way? And just lovely sharing of practice there. So if anybody is ever interested, please do get in touch with us. The benefits are they are fully sponsored by us because they're our own company run events, which means that it's essentially free at the point of use for our clinicians, our customers.
Yeah, I did see one of the people said it was the best week of her life. So that is, and I'm sure it was just the educational bit as well. But they are great, and I think all of that stuff, I think it's a really powerful thing to get people together and sharing of ideas, because you can be so siloed in many of your day-to-day work. You're in a room like this and you're on your own. So inspiring growth and bringing people together is what drives me, and I know that you guys epitomise that as well. And we're running an event which we were talking about earlier about you've got some innovative tech that we're going to be using on that, which is the first I've heard of it, but it sounds good. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it's very new age and does harness the dirty word AI, but we have invested globally. We've got 2 machines which are needle simulator machines, and I've used them myself, and it's a really cool piece of tech, which means part of the problem with ultrasound guided injection training is typically you need cadavers and you need a lab, and they can be quite, they're very costly to run these courses. I know because we run them internally for our customers. And it also involves, you have to travel, or usually to a specific lab in a big city. So if you're out and about in the sticks, it's a bit onerous for you to get to. So part of the tech that we've got, this needle simulator kit, means that we negate needing a lab or cadavers. And it is this really cool machine which comes with a handheld scanner, but it can be calibrated to any model. So it would work with your Alpinions if we calibrate it correctly. And so it comes with a scanner, if not, and you take the scanner. I'd look at your shoulder, Andy, and I'd scan it. And we've got a separate screen here. Typically you use an iPad for that, but a tablet. And that tablet is linked to this piece of AI software. And what happens is, as I scan you, I've got a fake needle, which won't pierce your skin, you'll be glad to know. But I can use the scanner and pick my target on the screen in which I would like to inject. And then we deliver the fake needle in line with under the beam of the scanner itself, of the probe. And what happens is, as you look on the screen, you'll see a projection of the needle into the target tissue. And what that enables customers and clinicians to do is to learn how to do ultrasound guided injections without needing to pierce the skin, without needing any sharps, without needing cadavers, and without needing a specific lab. And so it's a really, the other benefit is you can obviously change and do it in real time. So you could scan 5 shoulders of 5 people in the room there and then and practice on different anatomy all at the same time, whereas with a cadaver, you only have that one joint to practice on. So it's a really unique and exciting bit of kit to have access to, and we're still trying to work out the best way in which to harness it and use it within the UK. So we're running a workshop later this year in London, which is an evening looking at, I think, knee and shoulder potentially. And we're going to see how it works in real time then. And we're also doing a workshop at the Sports Medicine Conference with it as well. So if anyone's there, they can come along and watch and see what the kit looks like and have a go themselves.
Brilliant. No, that sounds really cool. Yeah, I'll look forward to having a go on that one. And then, so for people then who are looking to get into this area, like I think it is such a new area. We speak to a lot of people that are interested in this, and from our side, injecting is a way to help fund buying a machine. Otherwise,
Yes.
It can be a little bit more difficult. So it is a really exciting growth area. What would your advice be for people either considering it or potentially already having access to tech or some experience of injecting?
Yeah, I think it's always really good practice if you're, let's say, a physiotherapist who wants to extend the scope. I would go and do an injection therapy module just to do landmark guided. What that does is it gives you, it means that if you're CSP insured, they will insure you to deliver injections for MSK diseases, okay? So I think that's firstly the starting point. Learn how to inject, because typically that's not a role that physios would do as part of their day-to-day MSK role unless you're in an advanced practitioner role. So go and learn how to inject first. And then once you've got that, you've got some throughput of landmark injections and you want to expand, I think the next step is to do some foundational ultrasound training at that stage. So going on courses, and whether there's a lot of debate about whether you need to be an MSK sonographer. But I think just start off with some foundational ultrasound training. If you've got a colleague or a network, I know the ultrasound community is really tight, and there's often lots and lots of small workshops going on around the UK. Start learning that. There's loads of resources online, and try and get your hands on one to practice with if you can. And then once you've got your head around some basic sonar anatomy skills, come and chat to us about how to learn how to do ultrasound guided injections. We've got lots of pathways available. What I recognised when I joined this role is the appetite is large for delivering procedures with ultrasound, but the training pathway can feel really long, onerous and convoluted. And ultimately, if you're delivering injections with ultrasound, you're not doing any diagnostics with it. You don't need to be case accredited with an MSK as an MSK sonographer. But you do definitely need to know how to scan. And so there seems to be a bit of a gap in, you could go and do an injection module, learn how to scan, and then just do ultrasound guided injections. And I thought there's a gap there in a training course. And so we've designed our own IBSA skills course, which hopefully goes some way to address some of those gaps, in which we teach foundational ultrasound, sonar anatomy, and then needle visualization techniques on a phantom with a gel phantom. So you practice in plane and out of plane techniques, so you know how to see the needle. It's all about lining up a needle. I know we both know Chris Myers really well, and he talks about the credit card a lot. So if you're not in line with the credit card under the probe, you will not see the needle, and he couldn't be more right than that. And so we teach that, so fundamentally those skills. Can you see a needle in a phantom? And if you can't see a needle in the phantom, you're not getting near the cadaver lab. But that's the first bit. So learn how to see the needle with an ultrasound probe, in plane and out of plane techniques. And then the next step is learning on cadavers. So we typically would go through a knee, a shoulder injection, a hip injection, maybe subacromial, and maybe if there's time, some small joints around the hand. And that would be that's the second part of the IBSA skills training. We don't just sign people off at the end of that. My background, I did a lot of supervision in my last role around injections, but also managing, supervising clinically the physiotherapy team. And I can't rate supervision highly enough as one of the key fundamental parts of education, of learning any new skill is managing that uncertainty and having someone to ask, I don't really know what to do with this, what do you think, is such a valuable resource to have. So if people feel like they need extra supervision and don't have a supervisor, we have sort of slowly built up a network of people who would be able to provide a bit of supervision in addition after the completion of the course. So people can feel, usually what I say to clinicians is, if you're, let's say, a physio, you've done our course, you've got a scanner, and you want to deliver, I'd say just start with knees. Deliver knee injections really well, and then you can come back for another course and you can focus on the shoulder. But just do one thing really well. Most patients with HA injections go for knee joints. So just start there. Build up your confidence, build up your sonography skills, and then extend from there as you feel able to. So we've really tried to problem solve where all the issues are within the pathway. So our customers feel like they're being supported and looked after, and they understand how to deliver it really well for the patient.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think you guys are doing a really good job. We'll put in the links of all of your website and the different things you've got going on. And yeah, I really enjoy working with you. I think you are doing really good things in the industry, and I love doing the shared events. And it is such an exciting world in that private MSK space at the moment. And it's good seeing people like you that I think are the same as what we're trying to do, is really push things forward. So thank you for sharing, and I look forward to some of our further events down the line.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andy. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. Thanks, Kirsty.
Cheers.